Hello there and welcome back to some more Silly Car Showdown. Today, we are taking a look at the 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Brits convertible. This car was requested by Daniel Philpott, aka Daniel Plampot, and yeah, this should be interesting. It's very big, very big, very long, and yeah, I'm not quite sure what to expect out of this one. I hope for big tyres, that's all I'm going to say. Because it's an older American car, I'm kind of expecting big tyres, a lot of weight, because look at it. But you never know, it might be an okay driving car, we'll have to see. Anyways, the standard engine is going to be getting rid of because Daniel has a specific engine for this car. Our choices are a 6.2 litre V8, 8.4 litre V10, and the 6.5 litre V12, which is your usual muscle car trifecta of engines, and Daniel specifically requested the V12, so that's what's going into this. And of course we will get the twin turbo upgrade, which takes us automatically to about 1000 horsepower. As usual, there is no Forza Aero allowed on the cars, so it's having to run entirely on its stock stuff. As far as... no, I don't like any of that. We won't go for any of that. Right, tyres. This is where this car is either going to be made or broken. 265s and 295s. 295s are good, 265s I kind of would have want more. Also track width. Apparently that's what that thing was called when I was sort of trying to figure out what track width was in the Austin taxi. So there we go, finally got my answer there. Anyway, it's time to start piling out the weight of this vehicle until we put the roll cage in and put it all back in. We do get disc brakes, which are nice. I will give it that. And of course, in typical... yeah, in typical old American car fashion, it basically gets turned into a lowrider with the lowered suspension, which does look pretty cool, actually. Roll cage is going to look ridiculous. But we will go with it and chuck out 1,121 pounds of weight. Right, onto the actual engine tuning itself, and we'll see how well we build PI. The fact we are building PI is a positive sign, at least. Probably not going to get... okay, we are going to get around what the taxi had. S1875. 1,515 horsepower, 1,101 foot-pound torque, 4,052 pounds of weight, 4.3 seconds to 60, top speed 228 miles per hour. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to expect out of this. The tyres don't fill me full of massive amounts of confidence, and the weight probably means this is going to understeer, I guess, but that weight actually might also help keep the car in check. So it'll be an interesting one to see what it's going to do when it goes around our track. I'm just realising how long it actually takes for the camera to go around the full length of this car. It is an insanely big car, this one. Anyways, there's only one way to find out how quick it is, and that's by taking it to our track. So here we are at our Edinburgh course with our Cadillac Eldorado, ready to set 5 laps to set the best time it possibly can. Our current leader is the Ferrari FXXK, which this car will not be beating, so I'm not going to bother reading off the time. In terms of when I'm expecting the Eldorado, I'm not too sure. Much like the taxi from last time, I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to say somewhere around the 150s. These big American cars have done reasonably okay, depending on which one it is. Stuff like the V12 AMC Gremlin, that sets a relatively mediocre time, 149. That could have probably gone quicker. This, again, it sort of all depends on its handling capabilities, because, I mean, with the size of it, and also, well, with the size of it, the fact the tyres aren't quite as big as I'd want, and the fact that those tyres have got to support 1,515 horsepower, yeah, it's sort of all a case of up in the air when it comes to this vehicle. As far as it goes to drive at the moment, it's best summed up as fidgety. That's the way I describe it. It feels strangely soft, suspension-wise. It's sort of... I don't know. it feels very weird, is the best way to describe it. Of course, it's huge. I'm not quite sure if this is as long as the Quartz Regalia, but if it isn't, then it's not far off. Ooh, I caught that corner massively, but this is the first lap, so it doesn't really matter. In terms of its straight line speed, I will have to have another look when we sort of get to Glasgow Smile. The gear ratio seemed pretty long on this though, so that's something. Yeah, straight line speed actually doesn't seem all that impressive. Its braking prowess is better than it was in the Taxi. Again, we do have disc brakes on this one, so that is good. I believe these did actually come with disc brakes standard. These sort of old 50s Cadillacs, you'd be amazed at how much technology was actually in these vehicles. I believe they had stuff like power windows and all that in like 1959, which is pretty insane when you think about it. I think it was all hydraulically operated back then. No electronic wizardry. It's all... They're quite cool. I can imagine keeping one of these sort of running and going with all those hydraulic bits and bobs is a bleeding nightmare, but... you know, still. In terms of straight line speed, a little bit below average. Yeah, it's, again, at the end of the day, you know, for one of these 1515 horsepower cars, we've had plenty of them. And straight line speed in a vehicle like this, you know, that weighs 4,000 pounds, it's hardly going to be exuberant. Probably one of the heaviest cars we've had. I'm not sure if it's heavier than the Quartz D-Type. That's at a 149,905. Actually, the Quartz D-Type is a pretty good target for this vehicle. They're both sort of very similar, as in they're huge. Huge, V12 powered. Of course, the Regalia did not have race tyres, but it did have very big tyres. Okay, never mind. Fuck the Quartz Regalia Dale type. 148,476 on its first run out, which is pretty darn impressive. It does have to be said. That's not far off the Taxi from last time. This does actually have 1 PI over the Taxi, so it'll be interesting to see what those two do. I will say Taxi was definitely faster. And probably better handling as well. I'm starting to get used to the way it sort of fidgets around on the suspension. It is very strange, but again, it can be getting used to. The size also takes some getting used to. You do need to bear it in mind at the back of your head about its inability to really be agile. It's definitely a big American Yank tank, and there's no way around its size. It turns into here. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty alright driving. That's certainly a bonus to it, but it grips pretty well. I mean, it's sort of, you can see it slide around a little bit, but pretty much everything does that. Especially rear-wheel drive cars such as this. For a rear-wheel drive car, it's actually pretty good. I can actually go flat out in this, and it does pretty well. It does start spinning wheels sort of towards the top end of the rev range. I'm assuming that's sort of when the turbo starts to fully dedicate itself, or both turbos fully dedicate themselves to kicking in. But before that, yeah, I mean, that's the one advantage of this being a heavier car, is it is more controllable in theory, because there's more weight hunkering bits of the car down. It does mean that it should not get sort of buffeted around by the power as much. Of course, that does come with its own sets of challenges and issues, like if something does start to go wrong in a heavier car, it does take more time to correct it. But then again, in a lightweight car, it's kind of hard to overcorrect in these things. You know, it's kind of hard to mess up driving one of these. He says as he almost crashes into a wall. Understeer isn't really an issue. I was expecting it to be more of an issue, and there is definitely some in it, there's no doubt. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got a great big funkin' V12 up there, but in terms of its actual sort of weight distribution, I'm assuming it's sort of more centered than most cars. Because you've got to bear in mind the interior bits and bobs are extremely heavy, and the arse end does extend out for a while, so I should have really checked the weight split / distribution on this, but yeah, I mean, it's not the best handling thing in the world, but it's certainly secure enough. Around this tight twisty course, you know, stuff like this, these sections really do take their toll on cars like this. And especially rear-wheel drive ones, also going up that hill afterwards can prove to be a bit of a stressor, but it seems to be taking it all relatively well within its stride, which is good. As we come up towards our final lap in the Eldorado, we'll have to see what it can do. It is going to be quicker on that lap at 148, 109. Can we get it into the 147s though? That is the question. A very crowded spot, the 147s at the moment. Interestingly enough, I guess one of the rivals for this car could be the limo, the ludicrous limo. I believe that was a 147.9, somewhere around there. So if we can get an extra 0.2 seconds, we can sort of go towards that. But ooh, there we go. But yeah, I mean, overall, the actual feel of it's not too bad. Once you get over the weird fidgety suspension, it's not bad. Brakes pretty good. You can feel the weight in it. There is no doubt about that. But the actual throttle response is pretty good. It doesn't take forever to get it centered. It sort of will go in the direction you tell it to relatively easily. So that's always a good thing. Gear ratios are kind of long, but they do aid with that ability to kick on the power as soon as possible, which is nice. It corners a lot sort of neater than the Taxi did. The Taxi sort of, because the brakes weren't as good, sort of through some of these corners, it was going quite wide, but this is better at dealing with that than the Taxi was, so that's a bonus. Yeah, overall, I mean, it's pretty alright. It's not terrible, it's not the worst thing in the world, it's not amazing by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it's going to be any quicker coming up to the line, but it's not bad. It's a decent all-rounder, it has to be said. Yeah, cross the line, 148, 109 is going to be the final time for the Eldorado. To say it was £4,000, which is ridiculously heavy, it's a 2-ton car still, that is really not a bad run in the Eldorado. Yeah, solid enough. I can't complain about its ability to go around this track. It's, you know, again, I wasn't expecting this thing to break any form of speed records or anything like that, and if you was, then you're stupid, but for what it is, it's good. Anyways, a 148.109 is going to put it into 29th place. It goes just beneath the grippy Ford RB Mustang Fastback and just slightly quicker than the Porsche Cayman GTS. 0.4 of a second up on the RX-7, 0.5 of a second up exactly on the Allright Nova, which is interesting. Quicker than a Datsun 240Z, a lot quicker than the V12 AMC Gremlin, a second quicker than that. Just slightly slower than the Taxi. Oh, sorry, than the limo and the Taxi. I guess the Taxi as well, yeah. Yeah, solid enough performance from the Eldorado. Not quite as crazy as you may have expected. A 1500 horsepower Lamborghini engined Eldorado 2B. It's solid. It's alright. It's, yeah. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching this edition of Silly Car Showdown. Do hope you've enjoyed. As always, if you'd like to request cards for the series, you can do so in a couple of ways. One way is, of course, using the Discord server in the link below. Join that, post them in the request chat. That's the best way to do it, as I can keep a hold on everything. But if you want to do it down below in the comment section, that is perfectly fine as well. With that all being said and done, thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, farewell.